Welcome to another edition of the Mail Time Podcast. I'm joined today by Lieutenant Colonel in Reserve Daniel Jacob here in Miami on an important mission to help his soldiers. Thanks for joining.
Welcome.
So first, before we get to what you're doing with the families that need some assistance in your unit, can you describe a bit about 9221 and what you guys have been doing since October 7th?
So I'm Daniel Jacob, commander of the unit, 9221. Our unit was called up, of course, 7th of October, like other 300,000 reservists that were called up. We were actually told the area of Yakir and Kalkilia and Nablus area, in the area in the Shomron and Judea and Samaria. We were there for the 5-month beginning of the war. Came back after missions, nights of arrests and taking down terrorists and doing lots of defense of Israel. Bring it back home for Pesach. 2 of our platoons were called up to Gaza for 2 months. We're there for 2 months. Back home last November with a 3rd deployment.
So wait, I just want to ask one question. So when people understand what happened on October 7th, some people would say, oh, well, you're just in Judea and Samaria, so that's not in the war, quote unquote.
Right. So that's why soldiers were feeling that in the beginning, or all the actions in the south or in the north. Also, that's why a lot of the gear that the army got were sent to the south and to the north.
You're talking about donations.
No, well, the army equipment. The better equipment of the army went to those guys, which is understood because the main missions of the army was Gaza, then was the north. Now it's finally understood from the high command of the army that here and now also in the Yudan Shomron is a very, very important war going on in the past 20, 30 years. It was always on low fire, and now it's exploding in our faces. Now, the troubles and the brainwashing systems and all the terror that's going on in Yudan Shomron, I'll call it West Bank sometimes, is not in the news. But every night, there are people who want to go into Tel Aviv and Kfar Saba and Petah Tikva and Netanya and to kill Jews. The reason it doesn't happen, or to the communities around, like Ariel, big city, Ma'ale Adumim, big city, area of all kind of Jewish communities, it's because the IDF soldiers, most of the reservists in this war, are protecting this mission.
And were you ever trained for something like this in which you guys would be really holding down the fort in Yudav Shomron and that everyone else would be on other fronts, whether that's the north or the south, or this was learning on the fly because this wasn't even anticipated?
No. My guys, for all the reserve time, the duty in the past 10, 20 years, depends on the age of the soldiers, because I have guys who are younger, who just finished the service, and they're 22 years old, 23 years old. I have guys who are 43 years old. We do mostly, our units is ex-Seret Haru and Dudevan and all kind of special forces that are specific missions are in Yudan Shomron. So we know how to do that mission the best.
Okay? Right, but were you ever anticipating that all of the Sadir soldiers in combat would not be there alongside you and that they were going to be in Gaza, right? Because it's obviously a different tactical setup.
Different kind of battle, different kind of tactical setup. Yes, we get 2 of my guys were inside. 2 of my platoons were inside Gaza for 2 months. It's a change of kind of battle, different kind of missions, because you don't arrest a person, you just shoot them down. You don't meet the families like go into families in Yudan Shomron, which the whole village is live, and not everyone is terrorists over there. When you go to Gaza, you have to change the mindset that almost everyone in your city is a terrorist. It's a bit different kind of battle. You take down homes.
Would you say that?
Don't go inside a house and you do like a pinceta, how you say it in English. You go inside and like a needle and take back the guy from the house. You take down the whole house in Gaza. It's a different kind of way of battle.
Would you say that they're ideologically different people in Jenin versus in Rafiah, or it's just that the way in which combat is carried out is different?
The Hamas and the brainwashing system that I've seen is controlling also Gaza and also Yudan Shomron. So Yudan Shomron, the cover-up is like the Palestinian forces and the Palestinian Authority. But really, both of the organizations hate Israel, want to kill the Jews, don't want us over here. I see this in our own eyes when you go into living rooms and you see in the living rooms walls what they admire are not like beautiful pictures and scenery or people or rabbis, but they admire people who killed the Jews. They want us over here, and they don't want to live beside us. They want to live instead of us. And that's when all the ideology of all the Arabs around Israel and inside Israel, they don't want us over here. And I see this in my own eyes every day. I went to about 100, 150 homes inside Judea and Samaria, and we see this all around. It's all their ideology. That's what they teach the next generation, to hate us, to kill us. What I've seen in their booklets and all their school, education, that they teach lies. They make a whole new history. What happened in the 1948 war, 67 war, everything, it's whole nonsense. And they say that the Jews are harassing Arabs and raping the women. Crazy stuff you see in those books that are really teaching. It's worse than Nazi propaganda in the 1930s.
Well, I've actually even seen a case made by Western liberal sympathizers of Palestinians saying that the Jews are racist because they don't rape enough women. And that's a showing that they're racist because
Right,
they're not
instead-
actually doing that.
Because
And
they're-
then they also say they're also raping them. So they can't even keep the stories straight. Everything's obviously just
If you
made up.
ask Arab Israeli living in Israel, working in the hotels in Israel and Jerusalem, or in the cab drivers, also Palestinians. I have friends who are Palestinians. I've saved their lives. I have my electrician in my house. I live in the area in Judea and Samaria next to Jerusalem. We work with Palestinians all the time. They love living and beside us, and they love living with us and working for us.
Even after October
Even
7th.
after October 7th.
And
They wish it.
everyone in your
They
community
get good
is like
salaries. They get good health.
that. But I'm saying everyone in your community is going to employ
No,
Palestinians.
not everyone in the community wants the guys to go in. They want to replace them with Indians or Thailandim or whatever, or whoever imported, or also Jewish workers. There's a new, trend now of Jewish contractors with Jewish workers. More expensive because it's harder. Everything. It's not a different kind of work, but we have to understand that they love living it, but they can never admit it. If they tell their friend that they love the
Right.
work with living with Jews, they'll be killed on the spot, just like selling a house to a Jew in East Jerusalem, same kind of thing.
Collaborator. Basically.
Exactly.
Now, let me ask you something. There's been a deal that's now been in place for several weeks. We've seen hostages come out. Just yesterday, the 3 came out looking like they survived something like Auschwitz. Very scary to see. And of course, everyone should be returned speedily, immediately. And that's what we all want. I'm curious what the thought is of the reservists that you serve with when they see some of the progress that was made in Gaza being rolled back, and land that people fell for and people gave their whole lives for the last 492 days being given back pretty much under Hamas control. What is the mindset of the soldiers, the reservists in your unit right now?
So first, this is a deal that people feel has to happen. Okay, we feel that we have to bring back the people back. Every dream of a fighter that's in Gaza, his dream was to find the hostages and bring them back. That's a dream of every soldier. That's why we're
Wait. The dream was to find the hostages and bring them back, but the dream was not when everyone's saying Ada needs a home.
I'll get there.
And
Just
we're
like
going to win that. Yeah.
I'll get there. Just a second. So that's number one. We want to get them back. What we got to the situation where we're not fighting and finish up the war, and all the humanitarian aid was going crazy. It's the only country in the world that does this to our enemy, gives them what they want and everything. We're funding their own enemy, and the situations we're at. I know that the terrorists are going to be released from the jails. We already have a list of 10 guys we got to arrest in March. I got a list, my soldiers, my unit in Shechem, that we have those guys we have to arrest. Okay, because they're going to be released, and hopefully we'll arrest them back and either maybe kill them or put them back in jails. It's a terrible deal. Okay, but what brought us to this deal is not this negotiation in the past couple of months. It's the past year and 4 months, 5 months, that you're not doing the job like you're supposed to do. Okay, when you go back and forth to a village, in officer course, you learn the basic of the basic, and you go and conquer a place. You cannot leave it if you don't have other options to do, like, stay, do defense, and everything. You don't retreat from the places. When you said just now that soldiers were dying and injured, and I have soldiers of mine, not parts of their bodies, when you have a retreatment, going back to the Israel whatever borders, and then the Hamas come back like mice, and they come and conquer what they've done, and you've lost soldiers when you conquer that village, like Jabalia or other ones, Khan Yunis, going back and forth, back and forth. Every time you do that, you're losing soldiers for nothing. You have to be strong. You have to be powerful.
Is that
not
how
be
you see it,
afraid.
by the way? Because as an observer, right, and as someone who's been helping with equipment, obviously as a Chabad Chassid, I try to be besimcha, I try to be happy and go about helping as much as we can, right? And I try to keep that positive attitude as someone who's been on the logistics side, trying to help you guys doing the really hard stuff. It's really difficult for me to justify why people fell. And obviously Hashem has a plan. But how do you said people fell for nothing? Is that a
No, no,
view
no.
that people feel though?
No. They don't fall for nothing, because when they defend Israel, you don't fall for nothing.
Well,
Okay.
when you defend Israel, but running around Khan Yunis for 2 weeks where they
We
then
defeated Hamas. We took down their homes. Okay. Now I see victory when now I see Sderot being built up even more than before the war. My in-laws are going back to the home in Kiryat Shmona, and her two sisters and my wife are going back to Kiryat Shmona, building up their homes even bigger and stronger and nicer. And listen, this is a big price he paid. Big price he paid of soldiers dying. 7th of October, a lot of innocent people were killed in that day. But I think what it's as a believer, and I believe in Hashem, I believe in God as you as a Chabadnik, that this is going to make us a better people, better nation, and stronger with each other. Because you know what happened before this war: 6th of
right, of
October,
course.
5th of October, all the hatred, all the Supreme Court issues and everything. But I still believe that you have to have fighters, that the high command who believes in winning, not in ceasefires, believes in conquering the land, because the only thing the Arabs care about and want is land. They don't care about their lives. They don't care about the families, about the children. Well, Golda Meir said years ago, we're going to have peace when they have the children more than hate us, right?
Of
It's
course.
not relevant anymore, because they want to send their kids to be dead and to bomb up into the tunnels or whatever, kill Jews. It's only now the sentence is a relevant sentence is we're going to have peace with Palestinians when they're afraid of us. And when they know that if they do something to us, they're going to lose their land. Every missile that's going to come to Israel, every one bomb, every one attack, every one terrorist, one invasion, you're going to lose another village and lose another part of
Yeah,
land.
but we're clearly not doing that right now.
That's what it's supposed to do.
So you mentioned Kiryat Shmona, and I want to get to that in a second. But
We got to talk about the organization too.
yes, but it's tied in. What are the soldiers thinking? What are your soldiers
About
thinking
what?
about the concept of they just gave hundreds and hundreds of days of reserve service, and neither none of the two original war objectives were achieved. Right? They're still hostages.
Listen,
and
there's still hostages.
and we have
It's the
not
most
defeated
complicated
Hamas.
place to get. Some units knew where they were, but they were surrounded by
Right.
suicide bombers, and they said we can come close. If we do, they'll kill them. So this is the most difficult situation in the world. Okay, the worst place to fight and the worst enemy to fight against. But my soldiers are going to come again and again. You call them, they'll come. I've got religious, secular. I have younger, older. I have right wing, left wing. I have all kind of people in my unit that are coming together and fight for our independence war of Israel. And they'll come again and again and again. Yes, it's harder for them. We're not good in long wars because they're getting tired and they're getting fired from the jobs and issues with their parents, with their wives.
Well, their
kids.
spouses, which brings us to why you're here, right?
Right. And also, it's a problem. Listen, it's a long war. We can't do it. So, but
Well, you can do it. It's just that
can't deal with it too long, okay? Because we are actually built on the 75% of Israel's army is reservists. That's why we're
Right.
not good in long wars. Okay, the young guys who are doing our job, like my son in Yahalom, they're amazing kids, amazing jobs, but we're based on the reserves.
And Guy Chazut made an interesting point in his new book, which I hope everyone can pick up, where he said actually all the wars have been getting longer, and it's something to consider, right? Since '67, the wars are actually getting longer, and of course, the original doctrine of Israeli deterrence was short wars and being able to maintain strong security, but obviously this war has violated most of the original doctrine that the state was founded on.
Like before, we said, conquering a place, a village, and you retreat after a few days. That's not the way what we learned on.
So before we get to the organization, why you're here in Miami, you mentioned Kiryat Shmona. Your parents and your in-laws, and they believe that the goals of deterring Hezbollah have been sufficiently reached that they can safely move back to their home and are not anticipating further escalation in the next few years?
The concept of a ceasefire in the middle of a war was not good. But with Hezbollah, it's endless guns and bombs and equipment to attack Israel that they have inside, from also coming from Iran and from Syria. But things are falling apart for them. Okay, first of all, we took down the first threat, all the tunnels going into Israel, and all the first commands that are close to the borders.
Right.
We took down, we wiped off, which is number one. Number two, we cannot destroy all of Hezbollah. It's like it's half of the city country of Lebanon. Okay, so we have to do the basic, which is, like I said, the first stage. And if they stop attacking Israel and they don't build more terrorism and tunnels and going to Israel, so we'll continue this situation, and people can come back and live in the north, because people evacuate from the families. It's trauma for them. My wife's sister's kids had one of the daughters had a bat mitzvah. Now all her friends, she wanted to have a bat mitzvah 4 months ago. 4 or 5 months ago. And her friends are scattered around the whole country. We couldn't organize a party for her. So of course, my wife was an amazing person, and she organized it. We have an Airbnb, and was in the pool party was beautiful, and everything was logistic, to bring them together was so hard. They're really in trauma, these families. Okay. The government's helping them. Okay. But still, they want to go back to normal life. Going back to normal life, also with a potential threat in the north, it's not new for them. But if they know that they're coming back to a safe place, and it is much more safe than it was before, they're coming back.
I think it's hard, though, when everything was ara nitzachon and trying to ensure that this wasn't just a cycle and reconciling that with the reality. We don't have time to get into all that, but as someone who's talking to different residents there in units, it is hard to reconcile that, because based on the information that I have, and again, Israelis are used to a different normal than someone living here in Miami, but it would be hard for me in Metula to put my kid on a school bus, knowing what's on the other side. And that's really hard, because there are so many factors at play across so many different fronts that Israel's confronting. And I really don't think that anyone who hasn't been to Israel and seen the security situation can truly understand the decisions and the back and forth that all these families are going through. And you're talking, and and that brings it to your organization, right?
But before that, the last sentence about that situation of Catch-1, listen, I have a lot of criticism about what happened in this war, how it was run, and how we didn't finish the job we were supposed to do, and the North is still a kind of threat. And the Supreme Court and the Attorney General, who's always, we feel that she's tying our hands in the back and going to war and everything. A lot of criticism, but the people are an amazing people. Am Yisrael is something that the other people don't have, the spirit. And that's what's amazing. You guys are Chabadic, know this. Okay, building up Sderot like wasn't built before, and Kiryat is going to be built. Amazing. They built a new medical center there, and all the kibbutzim are being reinforced and rebuilt and everything. It's amazing how, listen, if we say that in every place in the country where it's dangerous, we're not going to go live, we can't live in all of Israel. So we have to come back and live like Trumpeldor and all kind of leaders in the past, like Ben Gurion and Begin said, were the
Kiryat Shmona is named after people that were killed in the north.
Part of our life, and we got to continue being strong and defend our countries and the borders, and that's the way you do it.
Well, I'll tell you this: when I showed a non-Jewish colleague of mine some of the equipment that the soldiers had issued from the army, and I said, "What would you do if you were in the American army with this?" And he said, "I would look at the general and I would say, you go first, you wear it." And in Israel, they said, "This is not safe, but
we'll do it.
We're going to go." And that's a difference. And it's a strong difference. And I think one of something that's going to be unpacked for many years is just the political messaging and the military messaging versus what was accomplished, because I know there was many people that were fighting and many people that were trying to help soldiers and everything that were saying, this is the time that we're finally going to say, perhaps we don't need a bomb shelter in Kiryat Shmona. Perhaps we don't need a bomb shelter in Kfar Aza, because
that's a solution, by the way. Not having Iron Dome, not having a bomb shelter, not having the big, enormous fences and the crazy technology we had over there. If we stop with that concept of defense, we're going to win the war.
Well, I think a fence is fine. It's just the idea that we're going to say, Like I was just talking to
Past 20
someone
years,
here.
that's what's happening. Oh, we're going to shoot us, they're going to attack us.
No,
And
but
we have the Iron Dome to defend us.
Right.
That's,
No, I want a fence, but I don't want Iron Dome, and I don't want the shooting. Right, because that's the thing. It's like now people are saying we need to reinforce the bomb shelters, and I'm
that's
saying
the stake in the concept of defense.
correct, exactly. So we agree on that, and I just hope that the public conversation can continue to harp on it.
There's a Jewish community in Gush Etzion called Bat Ain. They, on purpose, do not want to have a fence in their community. And that, okay, then that Arab, like really Hamas village in the valley and next to the house, next to their community. They're afraid to come attack those Jews because they know these Jews are not like other ones. They're not suckers, so I say the word.
Right. No.
You come close, they're going to attack you. Okay, they have to understand all of Israel's like that. Enough with the fences, enough with the concept of defense, always have defending us up to death. We have to understand that if they attack us, they're going to pay a big price.
First,
talking about prices.
Yes, but Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Jacob, he is a world-renowned tour guide in Israel. We did not talk about this before, but
That's
I will
my
just
real life.
I will
business of bringing groups to
so
Israel.
right. So we did not speak about this at all before we went on air here, but I just will plug that if you are going to Israel and you are looking for someone to show your family an amazing time and provide a livelihood to someone who has sacrificed his entire livelihood for the state of Israel to work in the reserve duty, Daniel Jacob is a fantastic tour guide, highly recommended. Why are you here in Miami?
Educating people of Israel, learning the basics and the spirit of Israel. That's what I do. I love doing it. Also to my soldiers and also people who come from all around the world.
And what are you doing here now?
So I'm over here in Miami and also went to Atlanta for a week. We're actually building up, we actually created a new organization for soldiers going back home. Because as I told you before, the long wars are not good for us. The people who are paying the price are the reservists, are the families, are the wives, are the children. And we started an organization called ourfamilyfirst.org. And this organization really is helping these soldiers going back to their homes. Now, Israel is not like the Americans. We have less knowledge of therapy. Okay, we have psychology, we have all this therapy, but still it's not as prominent like the Americans have.
Right.
So we organized, it started with trauma we had in our unit. One of the companies lost a soldier, Hanan Klein. We had a friendly fire issue. We took down a different soldier from a different unit. Big mistake, a lot of guilt, Jewish guilt we had.
Where did that happen?
Happened in the area of Kedumim, next to Shechem. Two of the soldiers that company was injured. So that company really got a lot. So I told them, listen, you're not going to missions. You're going to rest and you go back home, come back. And I was looking for therapy for them. Couldn't find them. Couldn't find one therapist available in the whole Israel because all the trauma of the Nova Festival and the people injured and the whole families that were paid a big price in this war in the beginning, couldn't find available therapists to take care of my soldiers.
What did the Army say?
The Army brought a guy, but he wasn't so amazing. Also, as reservist, but I wanted someone professional. Okay.
Wait, I want to dig on this for a second. I'm not trying to pick on the Army, but people need to understand. So I'm saying, so you have resources.
Psychologists, the good social workers,
right?
Were taken to the, people lost their kids, their children, their fathers, their relatives. So that was what treatments. The guys who needed therapy because they had all kind of trauma, that'll be the next step. We could postpone that now. But I wanted it as a commander. I wanted it now for my guys.
And it just was not available.
Not available. So I imported from America a person because of my company. I work with tourism, like you know. So I guided her years ago. Her name is Barbara Listhouse, and she was a professor of psychology from New York. And she said, I'm coming. 2 days after, she was on my base with one of her students, amazing guy called Daniel. And
it's a good name,
right? Beautiful name. And she treated the guys, taught them trauma, this, that, and then we got the conclusion the guys have to continue this therapy. Then they continued it again, another session. They came back home, they had another session, and then we got the conclusion we have to also take care of the kids, and the families, mostly couples. We organize every month or every 2 months, depends on the budget of the donations, because only on donations is organization. The Minister of Defense negotiating with them, they're not there yet.
Good luck.
Good luck. They think first about the guys, the soldiers. Now the Army is giving a therapy to soldiers, like 1,500 shekel budget and this and that.
What is that going to do? First of all, wait. I'm pushing. Wait a second. I, here on the Mailtime Podcast, I'm outspoken in my criticism of these things because people are absolute in human rights abuses. They're absolute in all sorts of categories in Israel. They're very outspoken about judicial reform, whatever it might be. So my thing is when I focus in on defense and I focus on the soldiers, I'm outspoken about taking care of the soldiers. 1,500 shekels is a joke, and it's not enough,
It's
especially
for therapies only
Okay.
by yourself, not with
right.
your wife.
Yes, but
But the
listen,
problem is when they come-
if you're there, I've had listen. We have soldiers come through here all the time, right? If they have a soldier fall next to them, is hit by an RPG next to them, 4 sessions is just not enough, and it needs to be called out. And I'm not asking you to do it. I'll do
beginning.
it. Yeah,
It's a beginning.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a beginning to guys who are not used to these kind of things. Okay. 80% of Israelis don't know what a shrink is or a
right.
psychology.
Shrink. Yeah,
Shrink, right? That's what they
Tony Soprano style. I like it.
So listen, so we organize the Shabbatot. We have therapists, couples sitting down with each other, and I can show you videos, amazing, so emotional. But the couples finally, first time in this war, talking with each other like you're supposed to talk to each other, and not fighting, not threatening a divorce, and guys coming back and forth. Now we're not deployed like to Afghanistan for a month, for a year or two, come back home. We go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So when you shoot someone, and you take the bodies, and you have explosives, and then you go back home and change diapers, back and forth. That's a hard thing to take in. Okay, so these I have soldiers who are divorced or threatening divorced, guys who have one of the girls of my logistic officer, when he just puts on his uniform, has a panic attack because he knows what happens in her film with fathers don't come back home to their home. They're dead. So she's a panic attack. She wants to leave the house. So I'm saying that the army is not providing couple therapy. They're providing trauma, post-trauma, and everything. But when our organization, what we do is we really bring them to a Shabbatot, and after the Shabbat, it's a beginning of a relationship with a therapist because it goes one-on-one and also group therapy. And we also built like a nice thing together. They built some art together as a couple before the Shabbat because it's religious and secular together. And it's an amazing experience. And they come and they say, wow, we need more of this. Well, I want to meet this therapist again. I want to talk about these things more, their troubles, because the worst scenario we had is that one of the wives, I was told by the therapist, not the name of the soldier, of course. One of the stories that she did not tell her husband she's pregnant because she was thinking of maybe not having the baby in this situation. Not even telling him he's pregnant to have a abortion, boom, without even knowing. That's how bad it was. So it's a very important organization. It really saves. Now, the war is going to be over. All the donations will be over and all the equipment, everything. These guys are starting their war. They're starting the battle with their families and with their children, and especially mostly with their wives. Beginning of the war for them.
I think that there's so many different aspects that you're touching on here because you're even taking it as saying you're a soldier and how does one interact with their wife? But you also mentioned that your son is in Yahalom. So as a father who's fighting,
my wife's not sleeping for the past year and a
right,
half.
and I actually spoke to one soldier who's been in Miluim now for over 400 days, and I think the only time he left Gaza in the first 4 or 5 months was to go visit his son who was shot in Gaza.
Really?
He went to the hospital to visit him, was with him for maybe 2 or 3 hours, and said, "Oh, okay, it's not life threatening. Okay, I'm going back." So there are thousands of these kinds of stories, and it really does need to be dealt with, and there needs to be an emphasis on it.
It's important for the army to understand that if they want better soldiers, they have to take care of the back end, which means if they want soldiers go into a battle when they're focused on the mission and not focused at home and the troubles at home with their wife and the children, I think they have to help us in this. Now, we don't help them. Meanwhile, it's only on donations. And it's an amazing organization, so we could help by your podcast to help them.
Absolutely. And I think
family1st.org.
Ourfamilyfirst.org. And again, I want to ask you though, just when you talk about focus, what % of the equipment that you guys were using came from some form of private purchase or donation?
Well, the basic, like the guns.
Okay, forget a gun. Helmet, vest, ceramic.
We're talking about almost 50%.
Oh, that's low. So that's
because I told you we weren't in Gaza, not in the north. We were this third unit that was like an enlistus. Okay, and the list like, oh, you're in the West Bank, you're fine. Or down Shermonian, you're fine.
Right.
So we got relations. Also, most of my connections, most of them because of my
right. But I'm saying 50% is low. There's some units I speak to that's 95, if not 100. So again, just so people know, and this is not even a controversial statement to say, but contrary to what might have been said, people were missing equipment. People are missing things. When you talk about focus, you guys are doing so much that
Also, drones, by the way, is an amazing project.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, it saves lives. 5 of my soldiers were they saved their lives because I organized donation drones.
Which drone? Do you know?
3T,
Okay,
metrics,
nice.
30,
Mhm.
night vision, of course.
Of course.
Okay, we saw guys coming from the back to the soldiers. We saved them. We told them on the radio to go back, retreat, whatever. And we had the terrorists running from their home, and we caught them. The drones are a lifesaver device. You want to help that gear? That's an amazing thing else.
So again, the reason I brought up equipment though was so that there's a common theme, which is that the soldiers and the families are doing so much. The least we can do is make it so that you can focus on your task at hand and not have to worry about other things. And that's when I mentioned equipment, it was only that some of the time when people had off from being on reserves, they were just busy working the phones to fundraise and try to get it. So it was this other element. Still have people calling me from all parts of the Middle East, not even in Israel, saying, "Oh, we need this. Oh, we need this. Oh, we need that." And when it comes to the families, if you can help a couple get through a difficult time, there's no bigger mitzvah. And it's really important to enable these guys to have a stable house because,
and you mentioned father and a stable husband,
correct,
and then also a stable warrior.
Right. Of course, because the last thing you want to be doing is be distracted and have all sorts of things in your head. And you guys are unbelievable, truly unbelievable,
doing the job
in an unbelievable way, because it's one of those things where you are going well above and beyond what you didn't even really sign up for, because you're conscripted when you grow up in Israel, and then you're volunteering for it, and then there happens to be a huge mess that you guys were not involved in making, and you're here on the cleanup duty trying to protect the country and make sure that deterrence and security can be restored, and you guys are doing an unbelievable job. And thank you for putting your own interests and your lives on the side for at least now 492 days. And I know you and I have a little bit of a disagreement on when this might end, but God should continue to give you guys strength to do the job well. And I hope that Our Families First can continue to grow and people really hear the message and understand that by helping these couples, you are helping families, you're helping generations of people in Israel, and you're helping generations of the Jewish people, because they're doing the hard stuff. Your children did not sign up for you to be in Miluim for this many times. So it's the kids, the wives,
and I would
the
never
warriors.
My son also would be in a situation after so many years of battle for me. Now my son's also into battle. That's really a hard thing for me to understand, but that's part of life in Israel.
Well, God willing, that changes a little bit, and I hope that in the next few years, there's a different ending to how this is handled, and we can lessen the burden on future generations. I hope that the days of cycles of violence are fewer. That's my hope.
Amen. From your mouth to actions, Hashem. God.
Thanks, man.